The next session is about policy, and the purpose of the session was to introduce participants to current government policy that impacts on their professional life. So that included the Statement of Ambition for Adult Learning, Youth Work Strategy, and the recent legislation on community. The learning objective of the session was to enable participants to explore the legislation or policy that was closest to their area of work. So I asked them to select an area to focus on. The group task asked participants to prepare a presentation on one of the pieces of policy so they could explain it to the rest of the group. This would enable them to explore in more detail the policy relevant to themselves, but also enable the whole group to look at the policies in other areas.
And of course there's been a shift in the last few years with further education colleges because we used to be able to draw down funding, but they're no longer for 15 years in our college sector. We used to be able to draw down funding for informal education and informal learning, and that stopped and everything's to be accredited.
Yeah. So there's huge implications in this for local authority, how it reorganises itself. And if this is to be written by September 2000 this year, I kind of,
Are you not aware of it happening in Dundee at the moment?
Nothing has happened in staffing yet to come together and say, right, where are we in partnerships? How have we evaluated it? Certainly not at my level.
Some of the key actions within that are for young people to be involved in decision making and having their voice heard, and also to prepare young people for employment using Curriculum for Excellence and CLD approaches.
I think the session was beneficial to participants because it enabled them to explore aspects of their own work and to hear about the legislation or policy that was relevant to other sectors.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at the National Youth Work Strategy for Scotland 2014 to 2019, which is made up of 5 ambitions, which we have highlighted visually for you here. We have ambition number 1 is ensure Scotland is the best place to be young and grow up in. Number 2 is putting young people at the heart of policy. 3 is recognising the value of youth work. 4, building workforce capacity, and 5, ensuring we measure our impact. And we've got a flagpole, which is the purpose of youth work, which we'll come back to at the end. Where we felt a little bit critical about this was the young people are being listened to, but their voice is not necessarily being represented at a national level. We feel that GIRFIC's a good model for working with young people in a work or young person relationship. But when we're talking about sort of national strategies, young people aren't as included. An area that we felt this could be sort of developed in is through the voting age, not just for sort of general elections, but also for community councils. If it was reduced to 16, young people would be able to be more involved in the community at a younger age, and it would be a stepping stone to having sort of better involvement in the democratic process.
Okay, so there's our ingredients. Now this cake must be baked and ready by September 2015. I know you've all been really involved in it, but have you? So that's one of the things we were, discussing.
The implementation of the next steps, from the knowledge we already had, it would seem that some of the timescales for various things to be implemented had slipped already. So we questioned whether what were being put as the next steps in adult learning, whether there was actual recognition that they were possible, and what would be the timescale for them to happen. Perhaps people who were implementing these next steps would think that they could happen an awful lot more quickly than they actually could on the ground. We decided the whole thing was very wordy, and again, as I said, we thought it was just putting into words pretty much what happened anyway, but at the same time the words weren't really saying very much. There was just lots of words.
It enabled participants to look at policy critically, looking at the strengths and limitations of policy and the advantages and disadvantages, the positives and the negatives.